Welcome to Or Something Like That,
the podcast where you can talk shit with your besties.
We're your hosts, Sam
and Hollis. Be sure to follow us on social and subscribe to the podcast so you never miss an episode.
And if you love us, give us that 5-star review.
Hi.
Okay, hello. So, Snowpocalypse 2.0.
Oh man, I was not prepared.
No, I mean, I woke up this morning. It was like thunderstorming last night, which was such a strange sight to wake up to 3 inches of snow.
Yeah, I mean, when I opened my blinds, I was shooketh.
Yeah.
I was just like, what? I mean, I knew they said it was going to snow a little bit, but
yeah,
I was not anticipating multiple inches.
No. So here we are. I made it. We're doing it. We've got a lot of ground to cover today, so I think we're just going to jump right in. So first thing I want to mention is I have a couple of updates on just last week's episode about Justin and Blake. One thing I want to clarify, I feel like I misspoke a little bit, or just maybe my use of words was not perfect. When I was talking about Blake's lawsuit being a workplace retaliation lawsuit, and I said that it doesn't really matter if the harassment claims are actually true. The only thing that matters is that retaliation took place. And I said that was unfortunate, and I just want to clarify because I was just speaking. I said that word because I really want to know if the harassment happened. And that really just, quite frankly, isn't what any of the lawsuits are really about at this point. I just want to clarify that it's not unfortunate that that's how it works in terms of the law, because I do think it's important for somebody to be able to sue for retaliation and not necessarily have to prove that the claims are true, because that would make it really hard to get any justice. You know, if you can prove that there was retaliation, then I think that's enough. And so I just kind of wanted to clarify that in the general sense of things, that's not unfortunate. I just think in terms of this case, now it's like the harassment itself is almost like irrelevant.
Yeah.
Just because of how everything has happened. So I don't know. I just wanted to clarify that.
No, I think you made that clear. But yeah, this is a tough one because I feel like there's so many layers.
Parts. Yeah,
and it's hard to keep them all straight. And yeah, I was listening to another podcast and they were talking about this, like a pop culture podcast, and they pretty much had the exact same sentiment that you did. Yeah, like, yeah, Blake Lively is probably annoying and not behaving strangely because there's some weird behavior, but like that isn't illegal, and what he did is illegal.
Exactly.
You know, like
yeah.
So
I know, and it is one of those, like we talked about, where it's like two things can be true at the same time, and I do think especially like the media and the public have a hard time like separating those two things, where it's like you can be an asshole and still be a victim of somebody else being a bigger asshole. Yeah,
and we still haven't gotten past the like projection of, well, she had it coming because she was annoying.
Right.
It's like, no.
That,
I don't care how annoying you are. Rich people behavior you have that's obnoxious and weird and entitled. But that doesn't make it okay for anyone to harass you.
No. And I do think that that's where we're still struggling in this country and society with, you know, this underlying sentiment of misogyny. I do think that's where that comes into play a lot too.
For sure.
So yeah, I mean, we'll see what happens. The other thing I wanted to bring up with that, and this is housewives adjacent, and we talked about this off record, I think, but another thing I wanted to mention that I did read in one of the lawsuits is where Justin Baldoni wrote an email or a text or something to someone. And again, I also want to say I apologize if I misspeak about the exact details of these alleged facts and things. There's so much. It's impossible to keep it all 100% straight. I've read like 300 pages, so I'm doing my best. So I can't remember if it was an email or a text and who exactly he sent it to, but it was something along the lines of he wanted to maybe go on a talk show or do an interview of some kind with somebody because he wanted to highlight the fact that some of these things that were said could be due to the fact that he has social awkwardness and impulsive speech due to his neurodivergence. And here's the thing about that I don't like. And we saw this with Tamara. where she brought this up on her podcast.
We're seeing it a lot recently. I think it's something in the zeitgeist now where people have learned that term and now are overusing it.
Right. And the thing is, I don't want to sit here and say that being neurodivergent doesn't come with its challenges. Of course it does.
Sure.
And, you know, it's called a spectrum for a reason. It presents so differently in every person. However, I just don't think it's fair at all to people who are neurodivergent, or just fair to the perception of neurodivergence to just blame your bad behavior on it.
Yeah, absolutely not. No, because there's plenty of neurodivergent people who don't harass other people. That's not, I don't understand how that's an argument
I
at
don't
all.
either. I don't either. And also, I feel like the fact that he said that or sent that message also kind of alludes to the fact that he knows there were things that were said.
Yeah, it's kind of,
that maybe were inappropriate.
Right.
And the other thing I find interesting is if this is something that you know about yourself, like, let's just give him the complete benefit of the doubt and say, okay, you know, he's been diagnosed with some kind of neurodivergence, which possibly he has. I don't know that part of it. And, you know, maybe he knows that he has a tendency to say things or that maybe are interpreted in a negative way. Don't you think that would be something that you would relay to cast and crew on the set of a movie and maybe have some protections in place already?
Yeah.
Instead of it being this after the fact thing. You know what I mean? So, yeah, I don't know. Couple red flags there for me.
Yeah, very red flaggy.
Yeah.
And it's just like, okay, guy, now you're going to pull out the neurodivergent card, which I hate saying that because I don't feel like most people do that.
Right.
You know, I mean, we can't assume he's not. I'm sure he is.
I'm sure he is.
I just don't think it's a fair reason.
No. Or a fair representation of what that's like for most people.
Yeah.
And so anyway, I don't love that. And then, you know, talking about Tamra's situation with that, which it's been a long time now, but she brought it up on her podcast. And I don't know how much has come out about it since. And I can only go off of, I did listen to that episode of the podcast. It did seem like she came on the podcast. She had one therapist appointment, like one. And what it sounded like is that this therapist kind of suggested that maybe there were some signs there. And then she's coming on her podcast and saying, I've been diagnosed as on the spectrum. Or I'm on the spectrum. And I think some of the criticism that came out was, well, that's not necessarily a diagnosis.
Right.
That's just here's some signs, and then you have to go for further testing and more appointments and things like that to get an official diagnosis. And it really did feel like it was more of a, well, maybe this can explain why I behaved the way I behaved this season.
Hers seemed very blatantly like, oh, here, let me give you an excuse for being a bitch this whole season.
Yeah.
You know, where it's just like, okay.
Yeah. You know,
and this was very obvious, I feel like.
Yeah. And I mean, I personally don't have any close proximity experience with autism or people on the spectrum. It's not something I've experienced personally in my life. So I'm not speaking about this from a super educated point of view. All I'm saying is I just don't feel like it's fair to that population of people or the perception of that spectrum to just come out and try to blame bad behavior on it.
And I feel like it's obvious when people are using it as a manipulation tactic because they know it's not okay to question that.
Right.
And that, like, that is a real diagnosis for people.
Yes.
And it is something you should consider in a lot of people's behavior and be sensitive to.
Yes.
And you know, consider when you're making your opinions about people.
Yes.
And they are doing that purposely because they know that they're going to hopefully get a pass.
Yes.
You know, and that's manipulative. That's manipulation.
I agree.
And it's manipulating a sensitive community of people. Like, that's not okay.
Yes. Yeah. Agreed. So anyway, I just kind of wanted to bring those couple of updates on the Justin and Blake stuff. And then, I felt like just since it was Tamra adjacent, just bring that up. I think the next thing we want to talk about before we get into our episodes that we're talking about is the Valley premiere.
Yeah,
coming up. We're very excited for that.
It's going to be the Britney and Jax situation.
Oh, God.
So interesting to watch.
Yeah, it's going to be very interesting.
I hope Britney gets her life.
I think she is. I listened to her on her When Reality Hits podcast, which her and Jax are now kind of splitting. They're almost doing like every other episode instead of doing it, obviously not doing it together. But yeah, she was just talking about co-parenting with him, and 1 minute things are fine and the next minute things aren't great. But yeah, I mean, it sounds like she's really proud of herself for the work that she's done and being able to stay strong, and she's just really focused on Cruz, and she's in their house, which I was glad to hear, because originally the reason why she left was because Jax wouldn't leave, and she was like, we have to separate, and he wouldn't leave the home. So she had to go,
God,
and get a rental. But now she owns the house. So she's.
Oh, nice. Good for her.
Yeah. So
that's awesome.
Yeah, that's good, I think. But yeah, so I'm really interested in, of course, Kristen being pregnant.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Doty's having a baby.
Did you know that her boyfriend is from Brown County?
No.
He went to Brown County High School.
No
He's
way.
from Nashville, Indiana. I have a couple of friends that
That's crazy.
went to school with him and his sister.
Really?
Yeah.
And now he's married to Kristen Doty, or having a baby with Kristen Doty,
and is on reality TV.
That is wild,
Isn't that funny?
Isn't it? Yeah, it's so funny that there's a lot of reality shows now, a lot of reality stars, but you don't know any.
Right.
You know what I mean? There's still
you don't
not
have personal connections to them. Yeah, which of
that
course
would be
this
very
is like
weird.
6 degrees of separation, but yeah.
Well, that's not true. There was a guy who went to my high school who was on Road Rules, who was on a season of Road Rules.
Well, did you ever work with Landon at Yogi's?
No.
He was on an episode of Vanderpump Rules.
Really?
Yeah. It's the episode where I think Stassi and Kristen and Katie are doing their like Witches of WeHo wine party. I think it's some kind of party like that. And they go ahead of time to like the restaurant bar that they're having it at, and the guy comes over and is like talking to him about the setup and everything, and it's Landon.
Huh.
Yeah. He worked at Yogi's. He moved out to California to be an actor.
Nice.
And obviously it was just like a crossover of, because like a lot of them do that, work in restaurants and bars while they're trying to like come up in the industry, and yeah, just like right place, right time for him, I think. And
yeah.
Anyway.
That's funny.
Landon Scott. He has a good
Landon Scott.
That's his real name.
That's a good actor
name.
name.
Stage name.
Yeah.
Too. Yeah. Anyway, shout out Landon if you're out there.
Shout out.
We saw you on VPR back in the day.
We see you, Landon.
We see you out there getting it. Okay, so let's just get into it. All right. So we are talking about the final reunion episode of New York. It was mostly about we finally get to Bryn and Uba's fight.
Yeah, it's just like, man, she was still so resistant. It's just like she would not. I mean, she fought it for a while. I feel like them confronting her about it, and she was very defensive.
Yeah,
I felt up until the very end.
Yeah,
when they finally resolved it, and I just thought it was funny. Like, I wonder if Uba's PR people were like, you need to be the bigger person, because all of a sudden Uba was just like so forgiving and kind and sweet, and like where has that been since the beginning? Yeah. And I feel like somebody had a conversation with her and was like, listen,
for your own image,
if you want to come away from this winning, you need to be the forgiving person. You need to be the one to like be the bigger person and say I'm sorry, or
say I forgive you.
Yeah, because I mean that it was a totally different Uba than we had seen in any season.
Yeah, and I listened to Erin on the Not Skinny Not Fat podcast, and she was talking about, this was post the finale episode. I don't know if they had filmed the reunion yet. Erin was talking about Bryn being out there doubling down and saying that Uba knew.
Oh, Bryn was doubling down.
Yes.
Oh, man. I mean, it seemed a little too good to be true that they were just like, okay.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, it was such an explosion for them to be like, it's all good now. I mean, maybe Uba was just like, I forgive you. Let's just move on.
Right.
Because
what else is there to do?
You know what I thought from that episode seemed, the repercussions from what she did to Jessel, I feel like were more serious than the Uba situation, because she really like messed up their marriage a little bit.
Yeah.
With the Uba thing, it was like, okay, It's an accusation that's hurtful.
Yeah.
And messed up.
Yeah.
If she didn't know. But it's also just like not really affecting anybody but those two's friendship. Right. Where the thing with Jessel is just like, yeah, you really like, yeah, that could have really messed up their marriage.
Right. And I feel like the thing with Uba, we don't have video, because she said it was right after BravoCon, they weren't filming. We don't have video footage of the phone call. Yeah. So it's almost like a she said, whereas with the Jessel thing, we have that footage.
Right.
You know, of her basically just making that up.
Yeah.
Or taking a fact and completely twisting it into something else.
Right. And with Bryn and Uba, they're both so nuts. So it's not like one of them has a character where you're like, oh, I definitely believe her. I could see it going either way, honestly. You know?
Yeah. I mean, I do think just with how kind of reactive and intense Uba is, I do have a hard time believing that she wouldn't have caught it and had a reaction if Bryn had said it. But I also can see a situation where Bryn is spiraling and Uba's just like, what is happening here? And maybe didn't. I don't know. It's like we're never going to know exactly how that call went. But I think it's really clear from watching the season back and then seeing some of the footage, and even Erin, there was some stuff I'd even forgot. Erin clearly still isn't over Bryn. She was talking about this on the Not Skinny Not Fat podcast, where Bryn basically ignited that whole fight between her and Jenna, saying that Erin said Jenna was poor because she never sent her the money for the Uber.
Yeah.
But, and as trivial as that was, it was just, again, another example of, Bryn has been doing this all season.
She really has.
And she has taken the most benign things like that and turned it into a whole thing. And that was what Erin was saying. Yeah, it was not nearly obviously as intense as what happened with Uba, but Jenna came to Erin very hurt by it. Yeah. So it's even though some of these things are very benign and petty, it's she really has been doing this all season.
Right. And it almost makes it stranger that she is doing it about such benign, petty things.
Right.
So it's just what are you gaining from this?
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So anyway.
Because and it doesn't seem like something she's trying to do for the show. It really just feels like something she gets pleasure out of.
Yeah. And almost can't help herself.
Yeah. Compulsive.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, we'll see where that goes. I do feel like I was surprised to see the amount of quote unquote resolution
me too.
That came out of it. So, I mean, we'll see how definite that resolution is.
Yeah. I feel like the only one who didn't come to some resolution was Sai. I feel like Sai is just what? Forget it, Bryn.
Yeah, Sai's had it, I think. And I do think Jessel's still pretty
hurt. Yeah,
hurt too. So.
And I will say though, they all did a pretty good job of sticking it to her though.
Yeah.
Even Jenna, who was pretty close with her, really made it clear and didn't let her off the hook right away.
Right.
I think they were not loving and caring at the end, which is a good way to be. I think they are all friends. They do truly seem like they are friends to some degree.
Well, yeah.
Which I feel like that is a hard thing to do. I think Bryn probably hasn't learned this lesson, but is learning the lesson that kids learn, which is hey, you may have not intended for anything. Because she kept saying that, my intention.
Well, the road to hell is paved with good intentions.
Right, intentions only go so far.
Only go so far, yes.
You still did these things and it still hurt people.
Right.
So it doesn't really matter at this point what your intention was.
Right.
What is the result?
Exactly.
You hurt these people.
Yeah. And I think, too, like you said, with them being a little more compassionate, towards the end, we have seen situations where people just pile on these people. And I feel like maybe we're becoming a little more aware of that. Not necessarily the public, unfortunately.
Yeah.
Maybe. But, the cast seems to be maybe a little more aware of that in some of these newer seasons. At least I'm hoping. So I do think that's good. I mean, everybody has their breaking point, and you do have to be careful when things go to these darker places of not piling on too much. So yeah, I was glad to see the resolution that came out of it. We'll see, like we said, how definite or how permanent that is, and we'll just go from there. The only other thing that really happened was bringing out Rebecca.
Oh God, kick rocks, Rebecca, and thankfully she is. She didn't get asked back, did she?
Oh, I can't imagine.
I think I read that they were
no way.
I mean, it's so obvious that the only reason she came on was to
promote her purse line.
Yeah. I mean, she basically said that
no, she did.
Like, on camera.
Yeah,
which I was like, how in the hell?
Yeah, and I mean, they do break fourth wall a lot, and like, I mean, I don't know if that's really like. It's kind of like breaking fourth wall adjacent. It's like, a lot of people are there for a reason, but they don't usually say it.
Right.
So yeah,
and she could have so easily had a great storyline. She could have approached the Scientology thing.
Yeah.
Used it as a way to like talk positively about it.
Yeah.
And she didn't.
No.
And then she tried to say that everyone was mean to her about it. Like they weren't. I mean, they could have gone in a lot harder.
Yeah. I don't think anyone was really that mean about it. Yeah. And she just literally brought nothing to the table.
No.
And it makes me wonder too, like what.
There were full episodes where I don't think she said a thing.
No, you forgot she was even there.
Yeah.
And like Jenna forgot her name.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, honestly. So my question is like, what was Bravo's incentive for bringing her on? Just the name? Did they think that was like a recognizable name? Like, and I'm not like some big fashionista, but I mean, she's not Kate Spade.
Yeah, she's not like a household name.
Yeah, I mean, what? I don't know.
No, you could tell too in the reunion. Andy was just like, eye roll the whole time.
And she doesn't even live there full time.
Yeah, that's the other thing.
In Florida, like you're gonna fly this person in to film.
Yeah, so weird.
Like So anyway, sayonara.
Yeah. See ya, Rebecca.
Sink or swim. And you sank straight to the bottom, Rebecca. Sorry. I mean, honestly. Yeah. Bring in the new. I'm excited for a new person.
Yeah.
Shake things up a little bit.
I know.
What if they brought back an OG? I mean.
Oh, my gosh.
I really honestly.
They brought back Ramona?
Yeah.
They just threw Ramona into the mix?
Yeah. I mean, honestly, like, I don't know that they would at this point just because I feel like they really want to stick to their guns with this, like, reboot,
I mean, have they ever done that before?
They've brought back old people into legacy franchises. Like Gretchen's back on OC.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Oh, it's confirmed now. They brought Tamra back to
That's
OC.
true. Yeah, Tamra.
Yeah. They brought...
it's just such a different vibe, this group from the old one.
Yes.
And, I mean, they're not, like, super young, but, I mean, the old...
Oh, yeah. There's a pretty big age
are in, like,
gap
in their 70s almost, aren't they?
Not quite.
Oh, no.
But yes, they're
60s,
60.
yeah.
Ramona's 65 or 66, I think.
Not 70s, maybe 70, I guess is what I was thinking.
Yeah. So I think, honestly, I would be obsessed if they just get rid of Rebecca, which I think they have, and bring in 2 OGs.
Yeah, that would be hilarious.
Yeah. So anyway, we'll see. We'll see what the new season brings, but... Okay, moving on. Let's see here. We've got Salt Lake.
What if they brought back... Oh my God, I'm not going to remember her name. She was one of the originals. Blonde hair, had the weirdo husband. Was
Alex?
Like, yes.
Oh my God. When he would like watch her try her clothes on and stuff.
Oh my God. What a
they
weird
were bizarro.
Couple. Yeah.
Yeah.
And that was another one where it's just like, how did you pick her?
Right.
And she just did not
fit in with the group.
No.
Yeah. It was. Yeah.
She was like an Uber dork.
Yeah. Yeah. God.
Who like kind of had a
man, those early seasons of New York are so good.
Speaking of old housewives, I was listening to that same podcast. It's called Las Culturistas. Do you know who Sarah Squirm is? Her name is Sarah Sherman. She's on SNL, but her stage name is like Sarah Squirm. And one of the other hosts of the podcast is Bowen Yang, and he's on SNL.
Okay. You know me in SNL.
Yeah, not your thing.
Not my jam.
But they had her on and they were talking about housewives, and they asked her top 5 favorite housewives, and she said for number 1, Carlton. And the way I died laughing.
I forgot about Carlton.
It was another bizarro one. They were both like, that is disrespectful. That is disrespectful.
My God. Was she more than one season?
I think she was on.
Was she on 2 seasons?
She
was the one with the car husband, right?
Yeah, like the goth house.
Yeah. Oh, man. Okay, so moving on to Salt Lake City reunion, the final episode of the reunion where Brittany comes out.
Speaking of, God, I hope Brittany comes back and a full-time character.
Yeah.
She's great TV.
Yeah. I hope they both, well, Bronwyn is permanent. Yeah, so I hope Brittany becomes permanent cast too. Yeah.
Yeah, she really brought it. Unintentionally, I don't think she meant to bring anything. She's just like unintentionally funny.
Yeah.
You know, like she's unintentional about almost everything she does.
Says. Yeah, I agree. And, you know, it's funny because you had mentioned in a previous episode how like emotionally young she seems. And it was funny because Mary said the same thing.
Yeah.
When Mary was talking about, she's like, I just don't like you. And Brittany's, I can't remember if Brittany asked why or if Mary just was offering it up.
Right.
But she said something like, you know.
You're immature. You have maturity issues. And Brittany was like, I do
yeah.
have maturity issues.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah. And it's funny because I feel like, you know, Mary really has had a good season in terms of she's been a little bit of a different Mary this season. And I feel like we touched on this a little bit in a previous episode. Obviously, watching what she went through with her son was, you know, difficult, and she was very vulnerable and open about that. And that was very positive, good thing to see. But it also doesn't negate the fact that she's been pretty problematic in the past.
Super.
And mean.
Really mean.
Yeah.
Very judgmental. Like, hates poor people.
Yeah.
You know, like.
Yeah.
And is blatant about these things and not embarrassed.
Right.
You know, like most people, you know, are judgmental and don't like poor people, but they don't come out and say it. She basically would just come out and say these things.
Right. And let's not forget the thing that came up where she openly said that she was more afraid of black men standing outside of a gas station than white men. And Andy was a little bit like, I'm sorry, what?
Yeah.
You know? And so there's been some things.
Yeah.
Okay. And I feel like we got a little glimpse of past season Marys when she was talking about Brittany.
Yeah, she's still pretty biting. I think she's maybe just, you know, had reined it in a little bit. She also seemed more lucid this season. Like, a lot of times she just, like, doesn't make sense, you know?
Yeah.
Like, I think a lot of it is just, like, misspeaks, but she says just bizarre things. You're like, are you, what is going on? But, yeah, the old Mary did come out a little bit.
Yeah. So I'll be interested to see what Mary we get next season.
Yeah.
I also felt like, and I can't even remember now exactly what this was piggybacking off of. I don't know if Andy just was talking about how nice it was to see her being vulnerable and what a good mom she was with everything that happened with her son. And then she kind of gave some accolades to Andy.
It was a little weird.
It was a little uncomfortable.
Yeah, it seemed genuine.
It did seem genuine, but it also it started to feel performative too, as she just kind of, she literally went on and on, I feel like.
Yeah, it went on a little too long, where like if she had just like summed it up briefly, it would have been like, oh, that's nice.
Yeah.
Because I think what she was trying to do was say, thank you for being so kind to me with this situation with my son.
Yes.
But it came off a little weird.
Yeah. And I guess it could be one of those things too where you get into saying something and you just don't know where to end it.
Yeah.
You know, it could have been a situation like that. But I remember.
But then didn't she ask him to do her? Then wasn't she like, now do me? And
yes. Wasn't,
and he was like, you're nice. You're funny.
Yeah. It was a little odd.
Yeah, that was weird. Speaking of that, I thought it was so hysterical because, you know, I think that all maybe started off when Andy was like, you did the burn thing on the last episode, so let's go back and do the nice thing.
Yes, that's right.
But what I found so hysterical and just so on brand with all of them is like almost none of them could give a true compliment without it being backhanded. Like they all had to slide in like, well, when you're being a good friend, you're a good friend. Like, I haven't seen this from you, but I've seen it with other people that you're a good friend. It's just like, God, you're incapable of just saying something
being
nice.
kind.
Yeah. Putting aside your differences and just being like,
right.
I think like Heather and Bronwyn were maybe the only ones who
actually did. Yeah.
Yeah. It was just so funny. It was like, you bitches just cannot.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I'm really excited for next season. I really don't feel like they need anything. I mean, I feel like it's kind of rare to have a Housewives season premiere without at least one new person. So, I mean, shake it up. But yeah. I really feel like that franchise is pretty solid.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, so entertaining. And I feel like they're the most like separated culture, you know? Yeah. I find them the most unrelatable, which I think makes them the most entertaining to watch.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
Not absolutely. That I can like totally relate to many of them.
All the Housewives franchises are built around wealth. I mean, that's just, you know, that's just part of it. And honestly, you know, that's part of the draw too of the show. I think it would be very interesting to have like a Roseanne version of Real Housewives.
I was just thinking that.
Like regular ass people on regular ass budgets.
Right? Like. I know. Well, I feel like that's kind of how it started out. A little bit, like for the first season of New York, for instance. And I feel like I was noticing this too, even watching, we went back and watched the first season episode of Beverly Hills. Mm-hmm. And just noticing how the opulence has definitely, you know, geared up quite a bit. You know, like that first season of New York, they were living in that busted apartment that they were renovating. Like, of course, did they have more money than us?
From the show, right? The show itself gets richer. Yeah. I mean, it was always based around people that had money. Yeah. In terms of having money in general, right.
But it's gotten to a different level.
And that's both because I think the popularity of the show, the production value of the show, and then the fact that, yes, the cast of characters, they get richer and richer. And not only do they get richer and richer from the show and other opportunities that come up because of the show, but they also get more and more concerned with their image. Yeah. So the illusion of wealth also grows at the same time.
And that's, I think, that obsession with image
is what gets to you, where you're like, get off it.
I know. And I sometimes have to check myself and be like, all right, they are rich, so they're going to act rich. Yeah. Like, give them a break.
And that's part of the show.
Exactly. Yeah. And then obviously I have some issues with, like, wealth disparities.
Yes.
You know, and, like, I think
I know.
It's just a thing.
Yes.
But I have to remind myself that, like, it's fine.
Yeah.
Their rich people problems are going to happen because they're rich.
That's right.
Give them a break.
I mean, honestly, I have to give them a break, but yeah. Okay, what else? Oh, I mean, Whitney and Lisa kind of seem to come to a resolution about their fight. I think we're kind of just over it and we're moving on. We're burning it and we're moving on.
Please burn it because no one wants to hear about it anymore. It's tired. And again, just like no one can just let things go.
No.
I mean, it's just impossible.
Oh, no. And, you know, it's like, it's similar to like being married.
Yeah.
They're going to keep every time they get in a fight, the old fights are going to come up. You know, you got your little scoreboard and it's like, I'm bringing this up again.
Yeah.
Which don't do that in a marriage. I don't recommend, but
does not work in marriage either.
It doesn't work in marriage. It doesn't work in friendship. So yeah, let bygones be bygones.
Yeah.
And move on.
Kick it.
Yeah. Burn it.
I want to burn it with Lisa Barlow.
Yeah. I'm looking forward to season 2. Okay, let's get into Beverly Hills.
Bev Hills. I thought the Augustus trip was... Augustus
Gloop.
I thought the Augusta trip was nice. I don't know. I just have issues with Sutton. But it was nice seeing that side and, like, getting a little insight to that situation. But
I think it does give you a little bit more insight into kind of her as a person.
Oh, my gosh. I mean... Yeah, no wonder you're the way you are. Your mom.
Yeah.
Like, she is her mother in a lot of ways.
Yes. And I don't know. I can't imagine what it's like to go through what they both went through. It was hard to kind of tell. She did mention that, like, things with her mom hadn't been good since then. Yeah. It was sort of hard to determine whether or not they had a strained relationship prior to that. Mostly was focused on after, it seemed like. I found it very vulnerable and open of Sutton to bring all of that to light. I mean, that's real shit. That's not, you know what I mean?
And like to go back to the house. And
and
the first time, had she been back to the house?
It doesn't sound like it, no. And to bring all of this to the show.
Yeah.
You know, and I think suicide is such a taboo thing that we don't talk about a lot. And I thought it was pretty brave of her to talk about it. And I think there was a really vulnerable moment where she did talk about having some pent up resentment towards her mother for being in the house. You know, she said,
that's some real stuff.
Yeah, that, you know, my mother was in the house when it happened. She knew there was a loaded gun in the house. And I maybe do have some resentment over that. And that was really vulnerable. And yeah, it
definitely did. Yeah. Cause I've been for a while just like over Sutton eye roll, but yeah, it did kind of show a side to her that was like, okay, yeah, they're reminding you that people are layered and you don't know what people are carrying with them.
Yeah.
And people act the way they do because of their past experiences.
Exactly.
That's easy to forget.
Yeah.
You know,
especially
in all walks of life, not just this show.
Right. But especially within the parameters of a show like this. Yeah. Absolutely. And I was a little surprised at Garcelle's willingness to get in there and meddle a little bit.
I know. I was like, are you kidding me?
I know.
Also, oh, sorry. Were you about to say something?
No. I mean,
do you think she should have invited Erica? And do you think the rest of the girls being upset that they didn't get invited was warranted?
Not really.
I didn't either. I was just like, ugh, come on. I mean, one thing if it was just a fun trip.
If it was an all-cast trip, sure.
Or if they were just going to like...
Just for fun.
Yeah, but like this, if given the context of the trip,
right.
I don't think them being upset is fair.
No,
really.
I don't either. I felt like, you know, it was nice for Garcelle to really be in her friend's corner. I think I'm going to be honest and say I don't know that it was necessarily her place.
No, absolutely not. She'd just met her mom for the first time.
Right.
And they haven't been friends that long. I mean, I know they're close friends.
Yeah. And I think it would be different. And obviously Sutton didn't have an issue with it. She didn't, you know, she didn't seem to have an issue with it. But she also didn't ask her to do it. So
Garcelle's kind of sometimes I want to be like, mind your own business.
Yes.
Yeah.
Is a little, and listen, again, this is something that is a show about gossip and drama. Right. So sometimes you got to insert yourself. But yeah, she's very insertive.
Yeah.
Let me just get in here.
I know. And she's like, what are you... I don't need your 2 cents.
Right. This. And that could have gone really south.
Yeah.
And ruined the trip, honestly.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I was kind of surprised that her mom's reaction was stopped at that one.
This isn't your business. Yeah. Yeah, me too. So
I liked Reba. I mean, she would be a tough person to have as a mother. But
yeah. Yeah.
She seems like a cool lady.
Yeah.
Difficult.
Yeah. But she seems very stereotypically Southern.
Oh, yeah.
I was glad to see the resolution there at the end with her, you know, saying she was going to come to the fashion show and everything.
Yeah.
But yeah, it is hard as a mother to imagine how it could be difficult for you to express your love for your children verbally or physically.
Yeah. But if that was not shown to you.
I know.
Yeah. I think that is a generational thing because I remember my dad said the same thing. He was like, my parents never told me they loved me. Yeah, they showed it in a lot of different ways, but like it wasn't verbal.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah. I'm just over here smothering my children. So anyway, I feel like it went like as well as it could have. Sutton seemed happy with the results of the trip and the conversation, and she seemed very happy that her mother said, I think we can do better.
Yeah, and her mom actually received that conversation pretty well. And you know, I wasn't perfect, obviously. Right. She wasn't like, oh, I'm so sorry. I should have told you I loved you the whole time because I did.
Right.
You know, I think she accepted it in her own way that she was capable of.
Well, and the thing that's so wild about this whole thing, too, is she's a therapist.
Yeah. I did not catch that.
And I mean, they didn't go into a ton about like what kind of therapist she is, but it's like, yeah, those who can't do teach, I guess.
Yeah. I mean, she would be an interesting therapist.
Yeah. I mean, like, what is she? Yeah, you can't take your own advice.
I mean, I would imagine she would just tell everyone to suck it up.
Right? I mean, what kind of therapist is that?
Suck it up. Do better. Who cares? What are you complaining about?
How about you don't tell me how you feel about that? Right. Because I don't want to hear it.
Feelings? We don't have those.
Okay, so we need to get into the Dorit and PeeKay of it all.
Dorit better be careful. she is saying some wild stuff on camera. Like, what are you doing?
I don't know. And like, honestly, I feel like we're in this place where we've seen so many times before, and Erica is just screaming at the top of her lungs for Dorit to get an attorney. And
Bose too.
Yeah.
Just like,
listen to us.
It's weird to me. All of a sudden, Dorit's just like this. I mean, maybe she's always been this way, but she's just like, what? What do you mean?
I think it's just really hard for people to accept. I really do. And I can't imagine, and she's touched on this, and they all have over the years. I can't imagine what it's like to have your husband, who's your partner in crime, best friend, the person always there, to suddenly you go from the most important person in each other's lives to your biggest adversary. I can't imagine like what that is like. I really hope she wakes up, and I'll have to see. I haven't like researched to see what's happened. Oh, the Bravo docket, which is such a great podcast. If you're somebody who is interested in the law at all, they have a podcast where they break down all of the legal goings-ons of the Bravoverse. But so they actually have a new episode out on PeeKay and Dorit, which I have not listened to yet. So maybe there's some information in there. And here's a little word of advice to anyone and everyone out there. And I feel like most people know this, just because it is something that comes up in television and movies. If you contact an attorney and have a consultation with them, even if you don't hire them, your spouse can then not hire them. It's a conflict of interest, which is a tactic that a lot of men and people who have sort of the upper hand in a marriage will use. And that's exactly what Bose and Erica were telling Dorit. You're not going to be able to have good counsel.
Yeah, because
he's going to do this.
Yeah,
he's setting you up for this, where he's trying to make you think that you guys have reached a spot of at least enough reconciliation to where you can have conversations and calm you down and everything's all good. And then he's going to go out and talk to all the top attorneys. And then you're not going to have. So
that's shady. Yeah. Man, that is a good tip. Yikes. These people being so wealthy and how much it inflames the divorce process.
Oh my gosh.
And just like, I can't imagine how crazy that's gonna be. And
I think this was on the previous episode, not the most recent one, but where she was at dinner with Kathy and Bose at Kathy's house, and Erica, I think too. And she said, he's trying to get a hold on all of this before they've been married for 10 years.
Yeah.
Because that was like a big thing in California, where once you've been married for 10 years, it doesn't matter. Everything is 50-50.
Right.
Yeah. Whereas I'm assuming under 10 years, it's only the things acquired during the marriage.
Right.
Whereas everything before would not be counted included in that. Yeah. But after 10 years, it sounds like it is. Ugh. So
gosh,
that's probably also like a tactic that he's,
And like PeeKay never came off as super warm or like forgiving, or he seems like he probably take her to the cleaners, and try everything he could. Like, once it's over. He's turned it off. It doesn't seem like to me that he's the type of person that would take it easy on her,
right?
In a divorce. Like, oh, well, that's my wife, the mother of my children. Like, I think he's just gonna be like, nope, I don't want to give you anything if I don't have to.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And it really kind of seems like since the separation, his sentiment has very much been like, I hate Dorit.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's how it's coming off a little bit.
Well, and that like he said, he said before, he's alluded to, I married you because you were beautiful. You were fun to go out with. You were always on my arm. We could go out socially and we were the couple. Like, it didn't seem to me ever that their marriage was built on like, I truly love you as a person.
Yeah, the true foundation of what a relationship should be. Yeah.
I mean, he basically said that in
I remember. Yeah.
And it was just like, wow. And
it was almost like trophy wife. Like, I married you for a trophy wife.
Yeah, and then you had kids, and now you're more invested in being a mom, and you don't want to be my trophy wife.
Yeah.
And it's just like, yikes, dude. Like, you just said that.
Yeah. And I do think, I don't know if maybe she just wasn't like this as much before they had children or before the show, but he's made a lot of comments about how high maintenance she is.
Yeah.
And how he just thinks she's ridiculous.
Well, and she probably is. But
I could see that.
I think if Dorit is anything, she's definitely high maintenance. Yeah. But like, you didn't. But I can't imagine she wasn't
like that a little bit.
Well, and again, I'm sure she was, and then it's one of those things that evolves when you start to make more money and you're more obsessed with your image. Yeah, you become way more high maintenance to upkeep all that. Like,
yeah. And I also, and maybe they'll have some of this information in that new episode of the Bravo docket, but I'm really interested to see what PeeKays' finances and all that's really like.
I know. I
can't imagine you. I mean, what, Boy George is like your only client, and like, what is Boy George now? I mean,
it's another thing where it's just like, what do you do? You're in real estate. You're a manager. Like, what?
Yeah,
I've never really understood.
I never really understood that either, other than he's Boy George's manager, and like, is that post Culture Club? I mean, you know what I mean? Like, what is happening? So. And he's always in London for work. And I'm like, okay.
Work, quote unquote.
Yeah. So I'm curious, like, what is your actual job?
Yeah.
And what are your finances actually like?
Yeah.
Because I almost wouldn't be surprised, and this is something that could make the divorce sticky as well for her. I almost wouldn't be surprised if she's the bigger breadwinner at this point.
Yeah. And I wouldn't be surprised if he's in a lot of debt.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
And
I mean, I know Beverly Beach never really took off.
Beverly Beach. What a horrible name.
Man.
That was hysterical.
That was short-lived.
Yeah.
So
Beverly Beach. Yeah, and you know what's sad is that Dorit just rode so hard for him.
God, yeah.
Like, she was just like, talk about trophy wife. I mean, she was a really great one.
Yeah.
She was one, you know?
Yeah.
Because wasn't the Beverly Beach thing, didn't she have some other name? And then PK came in and was like, we're calling it Beverly Beach. And she was like, yes, Beverly Beach.
Yeah. Yes.
It was just like, no.
She acquiesced to him a lot. Yeah. And this is neither here nor there, completely off topic, but I literally crack up every time I see PK written out Peekay. I just die. PK. Oh, man. Yeah, so I'll be interested to see how it all unfolds.
You know what else I'm interested to see unfold, which I have a lot of red flags with this guy, Bose's boyfriend.
Oh God, yes, that's right.
I don't get
genuine.
Something feels off to me.
Yes.
I don't
agree.
This guy just came out of the woodwork and was like, I want to have babies with you. I'm not going to tell you I love you.
Right.
And it was all wishy-washy. Then they had dinner and he was like, well, do we have to move fast? I'm not moving fast, but I want to have babies.
Yeah.
What is going on?
Listen, this is a sensitive topic to talk about because it just is.
Yeah.
But when you're sitting there having a conversation with a 47-year-old woman and you're saying, well, do we need to move fast? If you...
you know how this works? How do you not know how this works?
She's 47.
Well, and finally she said that because they were having these conversations and that didn't come up. And finally she was like, if you want me to carry your baby, children, then we got to get moving.
Yeah. And there's no guarantee at 47, I would say.
I can't believe that that's even on the table, especially if you can afford surrogacy. Why wouldn't you just go a different route?
I know. And she had that fibroid surgery.
Yeah. Basically in preparation to have his children.
I know.
What is going on?
Not that you wouldn't do that anyway.
Sure, but I mean, she did kind of say, she's like, I need to take care of this. I mean, we're going to be considering children.
Yeah. The more she talks about it, the more I'm like, what is going on here? And what I really want to know too is how much of this is I'm in love with this guy and so I want to have this family with him, and how much of it is she just wants another baby? You know? Because to me, it's like if she really just wanted another baby, she could do it by herself.
Oh, yeah.
So I'm curious. I wonder what you know,
are you really that into this guy?
Right.
You've known
for 8 months. They've been dating 8 months. It seems like that conversation she had with the daughter, the daughter hasn't even really spent time with him.
No. And there's something about him that's just giving me scam artist
Me
vibes.
too.
I don't know.
Me too. He definitely is not. he's coming off.
It's
just
like, have you researched this guy? What does he do for a living? Do you know that he has a job? Do you know he is who he says he is?
Right.
He's very much coming off that way to me.
Me too. I don't.
Like trying to baby you up without. You don't even say I love you to each other. Like, what is going on?
Yeah. Why are you talking about children with this man?
Yeah.
And so strange.
I can't remember when she told that to Erica and Dorit what their reactions were.
They were a little bit like, what?
Yeah.
You haven't even.
Because I hope some of them are going to come in and be like, what is up with this dude?
Right.
Like, have you really thought about this?
Right. And listen, I understand, obviously, having a baby on your own is complex and complicated. And then if it's truly something where she wants both, that would make it even more complex to try and have a baby on your own and then try to find a partner and hope your partner accepts that situation and yada yada. So I get that it's ideal to get them both in one package.
Yeah, it seems like to me that she's more just trying, like he brought up wanting to have kids. Like she's trying to please him because she wants the relationship more than the child.
And she almost even said that, not in the most recent episode, but the episode before, where she's like, if I'm going to give him children.
Yeah, like give him children.
Like what? I know.
That seems so antiquated.
Yeah, and she doesn't otherwise strike me as that type.
No, I know. Well, love does crazy things to people.
I know.
You can be very like boss bitch in your, professional life, but then when it comes to relationships, not
be that way. It's
so
a very
much.
powerful drug.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah. Well, yeah, we'll see.
Yeah, I hope the best for her because I like
shall
both.
tell. I do too. Yeah. So
hopefully this guy reveals himself and she just kicks him to the curb.
Right. I kind of hope so too.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess the best case scenario would be that he's the real deal.
Yeah.
And that they can get pregnant and have a baby. That would be best case scenario. I'm just not getting that.
Yeah, me either.
So we'll see. All right. I mean, I think that's pretty much sums it up for the last few episodes. We'll be excited to start talking about the Valley. Oh, I did want to just bring up one thing. I know that you don't watch Summer House or Southern Charm, but I am telling you what, this Paige and Craig breakup it's almost getting as much attention as Scandival.
Yeah, it's been brought up on Watch What Happens Live. Like every episode, Andy talks about it.
Yeah, and it's everywhere. I mean, it's just everywhere. And I just still cannot believe the amount of people just ripping on Paige and what a horrible person she is, and she's a cheater, and she's so mean, and all she cares about her. Yeah, so that's the whole thing now. And they picked cameras back up for Summer House to film something about the breakup. So there was like a little snippet at the end of the premiere episode of her being like, yeah, well, Craig was texting two girls, because all these cheating rumors came out about Paige because she's supposedly seeing someone new, this Joe D'Amelio guy.
Joe D'Amelio.
So he is the senior vice president of marketing at Clutch Sports, and his father is or was the former CFO or is the CFO at Pfizer.
Oh, wow.
So just a little backstory. Paige came out and said on her podcast when she announced their breakup that they broke up back in November of 2024. Okay. Craig has he's not so much denied that. He has said that she called him and said, I think we need to break up. And he thought it was just like a little rocky point, and he was like, well, they weren't together, they were both traveling, so he was like, let's wait and have a conversation about this. So he's saying they didn't actually break up until mid-December, but I mean, if someone calls you and says I think we need to break up, that's pretty clear.
That's a breakup.
Yeah. So this Joe D'Amelio guy was engaged and broke off his engagement in November of last year.
Oh.
And then his ex-fiance posted this thing on social media that was like, she didn't call out Paige by name or anything, but basically said that her engagement was called off and that inappropriate messages and DMs had been sent to her ex-fiance, and it was disrespectful and inappropriate, and they basically insinuated that he should leave me for her. And so now there's speculation that he called off his engagement, she broke up with Craig, and now they're dating. So, of course, everybody's out in the streets being like, oh, she cheated on him, she cheated on him, she cheated on him. And when Andy brought it up at Watch What Happens Live, he said, there's rumors that she cheated. What do you have to say about that, basically? And he just said, well, I don't want to get involved. He wouldn't say that she didn't.
Yeah.
You know, and so, of course, the internet has just run with that. And, like, here's kind of how I feel about it. That doesn't necessarily mean that she cheated. I think if two people are going to leave their significant others for each other, which happens, I doubt they're going to do that without speaking about it first.
Yeah.
So I wouldn't be surprised if there were some messages back and forth.
Sure.
You know, and this is something
well,
that
they have to have a relationship in which to base the decision to leave each other's partners off of.
Right. To me, it's like, this is something that happens. Two people meet each other. They realize they have feelings for each other. They end up leaving the people they're with to be together. Does it suck that two people got hurt in the process? Sure. Absolutely. But that is actually the correct way to go about it.
Right.
It doesn't mean that they cheated. You know, it's an unfortunate situation. You know, is it the best thing for Paige's brand? You know, maybe not. You know, but at the same time, like, it is what it is. And
and you're also not going through life making all your decisions. Is this a good choice for my brand?
Exactly.
You know what I mean?
Yeah,
like, you're still a person.
Yeah, like. Exactly. So yeah, I really feel like this whole thing has gotten blown way out of proportion, just like Scandival. And it's like, they broke up, people.
Yeah, like
they broke up.
It happens all the time. I know,
happens all the time.
And the reality stars. You really think this is going to be the relationship to stand the test of time?
I know, right?
Like, all right.
Yeah, and he wanted to get married and have a baby, and she didn't yet. She wasn't ready. She's very focused on her career, and people have really been critical of that about her. And so many people are like, "Oh, Craig, you're way better off without her. You're gonna," and it's like she even said in an episode of Southern Charm, which I loved this so much. Craig was like, you know, I just kind of thought that, like, I can't remember exactly what he said. Something about by the time I was 35, like this and that. And she said, essentially her sentiment was, you know, but like nobody is like asking you or pressuring you to have a child. She's like, I just want to be allotted what you were allotted.
Right. Yeah.
And I was like, that is, I have chills because I'm just like, you know what? Like, this is exactly the expectations that we have in women in this society are insane. It's like the Barbie montage.
Oh yeah, you can't win.
You can't win.
There is no winning.
And I just am so surprised still when I see, and you know, the people who are making all these comments are women.
I know. It's
women
horrible.
out there trashing Paige, saying she's a cheater, she's a piece of shit, she never cared about Craig, Craig could do so much better, I never liked her, she's mean, she's a bitch. And it's like, she's just exactly what she said. She just wants to be allotted what he was allotted. And I don't think the breakup itself really came down to that. I think it was causing problems and tension in the relationship, and then she met somebody else. And you know what? It happens all the time. And I do wish Craig had at least just said she didn't cheat. I think he probably knows that she didn't. And I really don't think either one of them cheated. You know, when she's saying he was messaging girls, he probably was. Because, you know,
that's also what you do when you have a lot of people in your DMs. Well, and your things aren't going well, and you have all these hot women.
Relationship is declining. There's tension because of this or that, and they traveled so much. They were always long distance. So I mean,
it is just crazy though with, you know, the Blake Lively situation too. These relationships that end. Just how blatant it is that misogyny is alive and well in everyone.
Well.
Like, we have not kicked it. We think we've made so much progress, and we have.
To an extent.
But, I mean, it is just still going strong. And
the fact that it's mostly women.
Like, we are not a void of misogyny.
No.
And that's what's so sad about the whole thing is that it's so deeply ingrained in all of us.
Right.
You know?
Yeah. Yeah, and I do think a big part of it is because misogyny and just, you know, marginalization of women has kept so many women from realizing their dreams and things that they want to do, and then they see somebody else doing it.
Yeah.
I think that's a lot of times why we do see these people saying these things are women. That's why.
Yeah.
Because the men are out there doing it.
Right. Yep.
So anyway.
Yeah. Well, a nice little end note.
Yeah, there's your
sorry, Paige.
feminist rant for the for the finale of the podcast episode. So I think that's all we've got for you on this one.
Yeah.
And we'll see you next time.
Bye. Bye.